It's very special to be here. As was mentioned, I've been here a few times, several times, and I don't take it lightly to be invited back someplace I've been before, because it's a very warm gesture to feel that we have connected before and we can connect again, and that what we shared in the past is meaningful enough to try to share again. And I hope that what I share with you tonight and that we learn from each other will be a source of inspiration for what we're doing right now, as the rabbi just mentioned. And not just what we're doing right now, but what we can accomplish between now and Pesach. Thank you to Rabbi Cohen and the other rabbis and staff members of the Kollel. Although at the moment Rabbi Fish is not in the room, I want to acknowledge Rabbi Fish's leadership and our long-time friendship, and really how I first started coming here, and I'm deeply appreciative, as of the opportunity to speak in the community in which he serves. Really, it does deserve special mention. I'm going to thank the Rosenbaums, who are my longtime friends and hosts. I appreciate very much this opportunity. It means a lot to me. I want to go back to the very beginning of time, because there is the aforementioned growth just in right now. I want to go back to the very beginning of time. We have a tradition that is written about in various Kabbalah sources, that the earlier something draws back to the beginning of history, the more you get to its essence. And the very, very beginning of time contains a blueprint of how the world manifests later on as well. On the way there to the beginning of time, just to express the as was mentioned by Rabbi Cohen, the time that we're in, which was eloquently put in terms of collecting Shalos Manos and getting rid of Shalos Manos. But it's much deeper than that, of course, because the Gemara in Megillah, Daf Zayin, page 7, says that in the discussion of which Adar Purim would be in, of course, we know that Purim is in the second Adar, but that's debated in the Gemara, whether it would be in the first or the second when you have 2 months. And the Gemara's conclusion is that the most compelling element, even though there are reasons to place it in the first month, reasons to place it in the second month, the ultimate deciding element is that the smicha of Geula LeGeula is adif, meaning drawing together the redemption of Purim and the redemption of Pesach is the most important element that carries the day. What that tells me is that we are in a time that is not that there was Purim and there will be Pesach, but there's a smichus, there is a connection. When it says Mesamach Geula Geula Adif, that to bring the two together carries the halachic argument, and therefore Purim should be in the second Adar, it means that there's a force field of energy. Like we know, everybody here knows, that from Rosh Chodesh Elul, the month before Rosh Hashanah, all the way until Yom Kippur is one notion. It goes all the way to Hoshana Rabbah, if you want to stretch it out, maybe it goes all the way to the last day of Hanukkah, so on. But on the surface, we don't necessarily understand that Purim and Pesach is one notion until this Gemara tells us that the Purim must be in the second Adar, because if it would be in the first Adar, it would be too far away from Pesach. They're connected to one another, and they're connected also by the 4 parshios, the special readings, including Parah that's coming up. So we see that there's a connection between the two. And I think that if we analyze the notions of Purim and Pesach from the beginning of time, well before the events of Purim and Pesach happened, we can access something that we're going through in a very meaningful way, and we can come practically to think about how to live through this time. So let's try to explore this. In Gan Eden, in the Garden of Eden, at the beginning of time, man was created on Friday. The events of Gan Eden that happened after that, of the temptation of the snake and Chava eating and giving to Adam to eat, all of that happened on Friday. Had they overcome the temptation and passed the test of the outside evil inclination, speaking to them and tempting them, had they said no and just gotten to the first Shabbos, then they would have already achieved the correction of the world that would have been necessary to bring about what we now call Mashiach. The goal of the universe, speaking simplistically, the goal of the universe is for the master of the universe to create a world that needs some measure of correction to partner with mankind, and for mankind to bring about the ultimate redemption by way of his disciplines, by way of his performance of the mitzvos and staying away from transgressions. That could have been achieved almost instantly if only mankind would have said no. You told me I'm not allowed to eat from that, I'm not going to eat from it. There were a few more brushes in history with near perfection. If the Jewish people would have received the Torah at Har Sinai as the prophets that they were, and allowed Moshe to get back into the camp without having created the Egel Hazav, the golden calf, then again there would have been what we now refer to as Mashiach. If King Saul would have obliterated every memory of Amalek, there would have been total correction, total resolution of the problems. It could be said that we're right near that now at the end of time. And we have the obligation to try to carry out that which has not yet been done in correcting the world. But going all the way back to the beginning of time, man made a mistake. He ate the fruit. He ate the fruit, and the Gemara says in Maseches Chulin, where is Haman found in the Torah? Hamin ha'etz. So the Gemara says, where is this character, the biblical character, Haman, who wanted to obliterate the Jews, where is he found in the Torah? Excellent, 20 points. Now, first of all, the question doesn't seem to make sense. Haman is not in the Torah. Haman is in the book of Esther. If there is an answer to where Haman is in the Torah, I personally would have answered, he's where it talks about the man, because Haman, that's the same word. But the Gemara says that he's in that very early moment when Adam eats and Hashem asks him, Hamin ha'etz, from the tree that I told you not to eat from, did you eat from that tree? Hamin ha'etz, asher tzivizira, I commanded you about a tree. Did you eat from that tree? So how do we understand that that's where Haman is found? Moreover, when Adam sins, he is then told that your punishment is going to be that you're going to have to eat by the sweat of your brow. And moreover, that you will plant, but what will come forth is kotz v'dardar tatzmiach lach. You will plant, but what will come forth is thorn and thistle. Now, I don't know about you, there are several words that I have no idea what they mean. Thistle is one of them. If not for thorn and thistle in the pasuk, but you know, like, what's a thistle? But whatever it may mean, what's the meaning of Hashem saying to Adam Harishon, you're going to plant, and what will come forth is thorn and thistle? It can't mean an agricultural meaning. It has to mean something much deeper. Until now, if you would have planted, something else would have happened. But now that you sinned, it will be thorn and thistle. Kotz v'dardar. The punishment is thorn and thistle. The Bnei Yissaschar says, that's the din of a Rebbe, says that in the letters Daled and Resh is found the secret of all that the Jew is supposed to do throughout history. He says that the Leil HaSeder, the night that we're coming to, which will be the Seder when we eat together for Pesach, stands for Sod Daled Resh. The secret of the Daled and the Resh. Now, by the way, Daled Resh, Dar Dar, appears 3 times in the Chumash. One time is where we said already, Kotz v'Dar Dar Tatzmiach, you will plant a thorn and thistle. At the very end of Parshas Beshalach, it appears when Hashem declares that there's a war against Amalek forever, and he says, Milchama Hashem ba'Amalek midor dor. There's no vavs in those words dor. Midor dor, Daled Resh, consecutively. And another place is where Moshe Rabbeinu asks Hashem, how will they know who you are? What will they call you? And he says, Zeh Shemi le'olam, v'zeh zichri l'dor dor. This is my name forever. What he had said, my name is Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. I am the God of Avraham, the God of Yitzchak, and the God of Jacob. You know those words, you say them in Shemona Esrei. You said them maybe a little while ago, you're going to say them in a few minutes. Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. The Ramban says that whenever a Jew says those words, he opens up the opportunity that God cannot turn him away. Cannot be turned away when you say Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. Zeh Shemi le'olam, zeh zichri l'dor dor. This is my name forever. This is how I will be recalled for every generation. 3 places we have Daled Resh. Thorn and thistle, war against Amalek, and the specialness of being a Jew, and the name of God. This is my name forever, and I'll always answer your prayers. So what is meant by Hamin Ha'etz? Did you eat from the tree? That's where Haman is found. And what is the secret of the Daled Resh that we can unlock on our way to the Seder? Furthermore, we're going to come back to the following question. What is this whole Ditzach Adash Ba'achav? It says in the Seder that Rabbi Yehuda, it records the 10 plagues that happened in Mitzrayim, in Egypt, and then says that Rabbi Yehuda established a sign, Hayanosem Simanim. Most people understand this to mean that there's a mnemonic. But it's farcical that that's a mnemonic. First of all, it lacks any similarity to any other mnemonic. Mnemonics are usually easier to remember, not harder to remember. Okay, so for example, if you want to know what the 5 Great Lakes are, then you might know the non-Jewish mnemonic and the Jewish mnemonic. The non-Jewish mnemonic is Holmes, Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, Superior. And the Jewish mnemonic is Moshe. Okay? Michigan, Ontario, Superior, Huron. That's a fine mnemonic. That's a very fine mnemonic. That's how you can remember something. You put it into one word, I get it. But every baby, every small child knows the names of the 10 plagues. And then the gibberish, if you will, of Ditzach Hadash B'Achav makes no sense. And do you think Rabbi Yehuda doesn't remember the sign? To remember the plagues? He has to, if you don't remember the plagues, Rabbi Yehuda, one of the great sages of the Talmud, ask a 4-year-old, they'll tell you the names of the plagues. Doesn't make sense. What's going on here? So let's go back to the beginning of time. Man is tempted. Man is tempted because it is very, very tempting to do the wrong thing. It's very desirable to do the wrong thing. Meaning, I don't want anybody to tell me what to do. You know that feeling? Everybody knows that feeling. There's only people who know that feeling and people who are lying. Those are the only people who know it. I don't want anybody to tell me what to do. I want to control this moment. Manifest my own destiny. I was asked in a question and answer session this past Shabbos to college students, why do I think that so many people are becoming less religious in the world? he was asking a very well-meaning question, like, you see the general rules are getting less religious, and then there's people who are returning to religion. I said, isn't the answer to that question obvious? People are becoming less religious because it's joyous to do whatever you want. Like, I don't want to follow the rules, I want to do whatever I want. And I told him the problem is that only has short-term gains. That's the challenge to that. In other words, it's worth the long-term investment to access the guidebook of how you get the most out of life in this world and the next. But in the short run, it's people don't want to do it. They don't want to do what they're told. And that's a basic Yetzer Hara. That's a basic element of the evil inclination. The evil inclination wants to be free to satisfy its own temptations, and it wants to reject the sovereignty of an outside force that tells me what to do. This is what we call, in simple Hebrew terms, taiva and gaiva. Taiva and gaiva mean desire for base physical things, and gaiva means arrogance. It means I'm in charge. It means I'm the great force of the universe. So people want to be free to do whatever they want. Without explaining too much, a little bit more of an advanced concept, just I'll throw it in. This is what the meaning is of when the sages say, Lo avdi Yisrael avodah zarah el lahater arayas b'fer hestia. The reason why the Jewish people ever bowed down to idols is in order to permit promiscuity in public. You don't really want to bow down to idols, but they want to be free to do whatever they want. Even promiscuity in public. See 2022 for more on that topic. Okay, promiscuity in public. Okay. But the point is that people want freedom. They want to do whatever they want. In Gan Eden, even Adam and Chava wanted freedom. Comes the Nachash, the outside force, and says, depends on how you learn it, but let's just go with this approach. Maybe you're not going to die if you eat from the fruit. Maybe not. He told you you're going to die if you eat it. Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe not. That's the heart and soul of making the wrong decision. The heart and soul of making a decision to do whatever you want is maybe there isn't a God who's watching. Maybe there isn't reward and punishment. Maybe the Jewish people aren't special. Maybe the Torah isn't true. Maybe not. And as I know, I heard it whispered, you know that in Hebrew this is called safek, doubt. And maybe you know that the same gematria of the word safek, doubt, is Amalek, the nation of Haman. We'll get there. Unless you want to take over. Okay, so, Amalek represents maybe not. These people are running through the wilderness, having gone through the sea, and God destroyed their enemies with 10 plagues. They must be really important people. Namogu kol yoshvei Chanan. Everybody is frightened of these people. Comes Amalek and attacks the Jewish people after Kriyas Yamsuf with the following message. Maybe not. Maybe they're just normal people. Like, by the way, maybe the world doesn't have a creator. Maybe it happened that there was once upon a time a Big Bang, and the magnificence of the human eye came out from that. Maybe. I mean, that's entirely implausible. It's one of the most foolish things that anybody ever suggested. But as long as there's a maybe not, I can do whatever I want. Maybe not. You know that I'm using scientific terms on purpose, from two gametes, there becomes one zygote, which splits billions of times into differentiable cells, some of which become kidneys that clean the blood, and some of which become livers and eyes and ears and brains. But maybe that happened by accident. Maybe. Maybe not.
Did you follow that?
The power of maybe not. To cause in a person the doubt. It's the doubt that allows a person to say, well, since it's maybe not, I can do whatever I want. Maybe no one's watching, but it gets frighteningly disastrous after that. Here's what happens when Adam eats from the fruit. He was saying to himself, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe no one's watching. And the Almighty punishes him with the harshest punishment possible. He says, Ayeka, where are you? Who told you that you're naked? Did you eat from the tree that I told you not to eat from? Now, 1 second. I thought you were God. Shouldn't God, the all-knowing figure, respond with, you are there. This is what happened. You did eat. But how does Hashem respond? He says, who told you? Did you eat? Where are you? And man is shuttered back into a place of, wait a second, is there doubt? Are you asking? You don't know? You asked for doubt. Guess what you get for the rest of history? You get doubt. You asked to bring into yourself lack of clarity so you could get away with stuff. Where are you? Wait, you don't know where I am? Who told you that you're naked? You don't know who told me? Did you eat? You see, where is Haman found in the Torah is he's found in that moment when the Almighty expresses to man, not you did eat, but did you eat? Did you eat is doubt. And we run through this world, okay, we're devout people. We reinforce in ourselves that we have no doubt. But if you ever spoke a word of Lashon Hara or listened willingly to a word of Lashon Hara, at that moment you had a doubt. At that moment somehow you pushed out of your head, he's watching, he's listening. Right? The Mishnah says that if you remember 3 things, you'll never do an Avera. That there's an eye that's watching, an ear that's hearing, and everything's written down. Right? And by the way, you know that's true. Because if there was a surveillance camera and your spouse or kids were watching, you wouldn't do it. So when you look both ways and make sure no one's watching, you want to make sure that no one's watching, but guess who's watching? But you're living in the space of, maybe not. Ayeka, where are you? And you know the word Ayeka spells the same other word. Echa. The lamentation of the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. The first statement God says to man after the sin is Echa. Ay. Whoa. Ay, what happened here? Ayeka, Aleph, Yud, Chaf, Hey. Spells the same thing as lamentation. So you wanted doubt, you got doubt. That's where Haman is found in the Torah. That's where Amalek is doing its work to create inside of you doubt. That we're not special, that we're not the Jewish people, God's chosen people, that the Torah wasn't given at Har Sinai. God forbid. All these things I'm saying, like if you would capture them and then put them on YouTube, like, or whatever the right thing is, he just said God didn't write the Torah. Like, no, the doubt, it's hard to even articulate, but that's the doubt that we feel. That's where Haman is found in the Torah, right there, at the beginning of time, in the doubt space. The rest of history is about the resolution of that doubt. Is about getting rid of the Amalek that's in us and settling the truth and the commitment that there is a Hashem, and that's the only force in all of the world. The only force is the author of the Torah, the creator of the universe. Yes, ma'am.
But Haman is initially called Memuchan. Blemish is here.
Okay.
So are you saying that his name Memuchan is there, but the word Haman isn't there? Because his name he is a blemish. Like he starts off with that name. Or are you saying the name Haman?
I don't think that that is necessarily contradictory to the whole idea. In other words, if you say mumkan,
Yeah.
okay, which the Gemara, by the way, understands mumkan differently. So it's not clear that that's what it means. The Gemara says that he's muchan leparonus. He's being prepared for destruction. Okay, but be that as it may, it's the same exact idea. The mum is kan. This force
Is the destruction.
This force is the defilement
Right.
of the truth. So what's the truth? The truth is that Hashem created, it's in the 13 attributes, the 13, principles. The truth. The truth is that Hashem created the world, gave the Torah to the Jewish people, chose us, and so on. We're not going to go through the whole truth now. Basically, the truth can be summarized in Ein Od Milvado. There is no force in the world other than the Almighty. That everything is contained within Hashem. That's the truth. A season begins with Purim where we're uprooting. In the hidden, we see that Hashem is the one behind it all, and we're testifying that Hashem is behind it all, and we're uprooting this Amalek element within us. But it continues into now, and we shift into a different guy. The other guy is Paro. Paro asks a question that every one of us asks every day, many times per day, which is, Mi Hashem asher eshma b'kolo. When Moshe comes and says, send my people out, Paro says, who is God that I should listen to his voice? We ask that question too when we come to a moment of test. I know I ought to do this, I know I ought to do that, whatever it is, but who is Hashem that I should listen to his voice? I think I'll spend the money that way. Who is Hashem that I should listen to his voice? I think I'll look at that, or use my time for that, or use my money for that, or listen to that, or you got it. You've been there before. Who is Hashem that I should listen to his voice? We want to reject and push out that clarity, because the clarity is too demanding. I want my freedom. I want my freedom. Who's Hashem that I should listen to his voice? That's Paro. That's a force of Paro that's coming. And the Seder, and if you want to have a successful Seder, you have to prepare before. You can't come to the Haggadah that night. Now, that's easy for me to say to this crowd because you're doing it. So you can pat yourself on the back. That's what you're doing here tonight. You came to try to be inspired, to try to learn something new. The secret is the difference between Dalet and Resh. Now, just to remind ourselves, it says that there's a thorn and a thistle that you will now grow forth. That was said to Adam in Gan Eden. This is my name for every generation. Zezichri l'dor dor. This is my name. You will know me through the notion of generation to generation, dor dor. I will fight with Amalek. Milchama Hashem Amalek mi dor dor. I will always fight with Amalek. Here, this Dalet Resh keeps fighting itself in here. Dalet and Resh are the two most similar letters, arguably, the two most similar letters in the Hebrew language. I'm not a child Kriya expert, but I have no doubt that children have among the hardest time differentiating between Dalet and Resh. It's not that hard to pick up that Hey and Ches have a spot in the middle. But Dalet and Resh are almost exactly alike. In fact, in the laws of Safras, of writing, the Dalet doesn't even need to have a protruding edge on the right. The only difference in Dalet and Resh technically is curvature versus an angle at the top of the letter. You see in some old Sifrei Torah, the Dalets have almost nothing going on to the right of the line. Almost nothing. The amount of ink that's the difference between a Dalet and a Resh is next to nothing. Do everybody agree about that? That makes sense to you? So on the surface, Dalet and Resh are almost exactly the same. But there's a big Dalet in the Torah, and there's a big Resh in the Torah. Does anybody know where the big Dalet appears in a Torah scroll? In the Shema. It says, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. The ayin is big in Shema, and the Dalet is big in Echad. That statement means Hashem Echad. There is only one God. That's a much bigger idea than can possibly be expressed in a couple of minutes. It doesn't only mean that there's one and not two. It means that all forces in the universe are from the master of the universe. It is inclusive and unified. God is a unification. There is no border. There is no end. Echad, God is one. All forces, everything is to be tilted towards Hashem. Does anybody know where the big Reish appears in the Chumash? This is much harder. It's in Parshas Kisisa. After Moshe wins back our right to exist after the golden calf, the Torah reading for fast days, Vayachal Moshe es Pnei Elokov, Pnei Hashem Elokov, and Hashem kel rachum mechan, and God says, teaches Moshe that you can access forgiveness by recalling the 13 attributes of divine mercy. After the Torah reading of that time, right after that, it says, Lo sishtachaveh le'el acher. Do not bow down to another god. The Reish in acher is a large Reish. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. Reish and Daled are the two most similar words, two similar letters in the Hebrew language. There's almost no difference in the two of them. But Hashem Echad and El Acher are the most opposite concepts that could exist in the world. The Almighty is everything, or bowing down to another God, a foreign God. El Acher, another God. Hashem Echad, God is one. Are we on the same page that those are the two most fundamentally, diametrically opposite ideas possible? That the master of the universe is one and there is no other, versus there is another. And the only difference between Echad and Acher is the tiniest bit of ink. Now, the Gemara in Menachos is describing the letters that we use in a Torah and in Tefillin and Mezuzos and so on. It refers to the smallest amount of ink that is required in order to have a letter be have integrity. Do you know what that the Gemara's term is for that tiny amount of ink? Kotso shel yud. The coats, the thorn of a yud. It means that a yud is not just a line or a dot. It has a little thing coming off the bottom. That little thing coming off the bottom is kotso shel yud. A little bit, the thorn of a yud. The smallest letter is made up of parts. And the parts are required. And that's called kotso shel yud. The thorn of the yud. The difference between the Daled and the Reish in the Hebrew language is only a kotz. It's the tiniest amount of ink coming off the side of what would be a Reish to form a Daled. It would be a Reish, but then it would spell Acher, a different God. Enters a tiny bit of ink, and it's Echad. Adam Harishon sinned, and he begged that the world would become a place that lacked clarity, that caused confusion, that created suffix, that allowed him to say for the rest of history, maybe not. Maybe not so I can eat whatever I want. Maybe not so I don't have to get as much stuck in them. Maybe not so I can, well, you finish it, whatever it is, that's your temptation. Maybe not. And Hashem says, you asked for it, you get it. Kotz v'dardar tatzmiach lach. You'll plant a kotz and a daled reish, confusion. You won't easily be able to tell the difference between Hashem Echad and El Acher, even though they're the most different things in the world. But you'll be staring at God, and you'll be staring at something, and you'll say, wow. And you'll say, maybe not. I have a friend, he went to the Grand Canyon, he met two people. True story. He met two people in the Grand Canyon. The first one said to him, just amazing what God can do with the scrape of his fingernail. And another guy said, I wouldn't want my cow to get lost in there. Two people looking at the same thing. And one is saying, there is a God. and the other one's totally out to lunch. Now, the fact that there is a God is obvious. Look at Jewish history. The ongoing existence of this people, in spite of it all, is itself evidence of Hashem. But the only difference is that man asked for confusion, and confusion set in. And the rest of history, we have to teach ourselves and teach our families to get rid of the confusion, to differentiate between the Dalet and the Resh. Now, by the way, we said a moment ago that the only difference between Dalet and Resh is a coats. And this was hinted to Adam in Gan Eden. What's the gematria of Resh? The numerical value of Resh? 200. What's the numerical value of Dalet? 4. What's the difference? 196. Kuf Vav Tzadi. Coats. The only difference between the Dalet and the Resh is the coats. That's the only difference between the Dalet and the Resh. But it's the whole difference. It's the work that we're doing. It's what we're trying to impress upon ourselves. It's why we learn. It's why we daven. It's why we invest in learning about Yetzias Mitzrayim and the redemption from Egypt. What we're trying to do at the Seder is to go to the table and teach our families, which begins with teaching ourselves, and do not fall victim to the idea that the Seder is a place where children teach adults. That's not true. It doesn't say anywhere in the Torah, and you shall teach your father. It says you should tell your kids. You're not exempt because you went to school 40 years ago and they're in school now. You have to learn in order to be able to give over to your kids. There's a difference between echad and acher. Hashem echad u'shmo echad. The Hashem exists, He's the only one. We have to be able to give that over to our family. We have to strengthen ourselves in our learning. You remember we said that Paro asked, who is Hashem that I should listen to His voice? And we ask ourselves that. This is the secret of Ditzach Hadash Be'achav. Ditzach Hadash Be'achav is not a mnemonic. The Slonim Rebbe says that Ditzach Hadash Be'achav is something that Rabbi Yehuda noticed in the Chumash. In the Chumash, if you read the narrative of the plagues, you will see that there is a major introduction before the first one, the fourth one, and the seventh one. But there's a warning. Before the first one, Hashem says, He says, you will see that I am God, so that you know that I am God. That's a general introduction to all 10 plagues. What then ensues is 3 plagues that happen below the surface of the ground. Blood is the water. Frogs come out of the water. And the lice is the sand. Before the fourth one, Rabbi Yehuda noticed he wasn't creating a mnemonic. He was teaching us something, that there are 3 sets here. All the sets are here to answer Paro's question, who is God that I should listen to? Where is God in charge? The next 4, right before that, before Arov, it says that you'll know, Ki ani Hashem b'kerev haaretz. I am God in the midst of the land. The next 3 are on the land. Wild animals, the death of the livestock, dever, and boils on the human beings. So the first one is below. The second set is on the surface of the land. And then Hashem says, another introduction, so that you will know, Ki ein kamoni b'chol haaretz. There's nobody like me in all of the land. The only thing left is the top. The only thing left is the top. So comes barad, hail, a wind bringing in the locusts, the descending darkness, and the Almighty passing over the houses and killing the firstborn. That happens up on top. This is something really worthwhile to remember for the Seder. Really worthwhile. That when we come to that point and we say that the Almighty showed His dominion, and Rabbi Yehuda said, there are signs here. He was just reading the Chumash. It's worthwhile to review this in Parshas Bo. You'll notice it jump off the page now. And there's an introduction before the first, before the fourth, and before the seventh. Major warning. That's what Rabbi Yehuda was noticing. And he was noticing that there's a bunch here, that God is in charge. Who is Hashem that I should listen to his voice? Oh, he's the one who's in charge everywhere. You see, you're in a room. And you say, now, Mom, Dad, I'm going to my room. In my room I can do whatever I want. I said, no, your room is our room. That's not sovereign land where you can do whatever you want. You live in this house, you follow these rules. The Master of the Universe is saying, wherever you find yourself, power, you want to know who I am? I'm the one who's in charge of all this. I'll display it to you on these 10 ways. But the 10 are really 3. And the 3 demonstrate. They demonstrate who I am, and they resolve the question. They resolve the question that was from the beginning of time. Which is, maybe not? No, not maybe not. Yes. There's a Master of the Universe. He's watching. He's involved. Sometimes he's involved in a transcendent way like Purim. Sometimes he's involved in an imminent way like Pesach. Hashem is running the world. Hashem is running our individual worlds. Hashem is a gift giver. We have responsibilities. If we have doubts, it's okay. Learn, ask. Turn to your teachers. You know, this is a wealthy community. You have great rabbis and rabbis and great peers. It's a wealthy community. You have tremendous wealth in Yiddishkeit. And it is hard. We do have questions. So learn more, ask more, clarify more. From the beginning of time, Hashem made it confusing. We asked for it. We asked for the confusion. We invited it in, and it became confusing. And sometimes the most different things in the world can be confusing. Echad and acher. And the only difference is so small, but it's so profound. That's what we're doing this time of year, and the reward for it is profound. If we use the time well, if we do learn, and we do take, Yontif is the biggest gift we have. It's hard. It's really hard to make Yontif. But when would we focus on things if we weren't commanded, brought into a zeroed-in amount of time to do it? It's a huge gift to us between now and the end of Pesach. We have to use the time well to strengthen ourselves in answering that ultimate question. Who is Hashem? What is he capable of? I can tell you that at my Seder, I start every Seder the same way. Say, we have all gathered here tonight to answer Paro's question. Who is Hashem that I should listen to his voice? And we're going to learn about the capabilities of the Master of the Universe. And we're going to focus on his historic trustworthiness. And it's going to be good. It's going to be good. Because V'hisha Amdel Avuseinu V'lanu, the promise has always stood for us. That even though we invited in the doubt, and we took on the responsibility of resolving the doubt, we're up to the task of resolving the doubt by way of learning, sharing, and exploring in order to keep on clarifying every day of our lives that there is no doubt. The Master of the Universe created it all, sustains it all, and has a bright future for all of us. Thank you so much for listening.